First of all, I would like to thank everyone here today, as well as those that might watch this later, just for taking a moment out of your busy days to join us for this conversation. Just to let you know how we're going to proceed with this, during the first 20 minutes following my quick spiel, our CEO, Dennis Brosclose, who's on the line with us here, will share a few thoughts on what to consider beyond E2E visibility. And then for the following 10 minutes, we'll be fielding a few questions from the audience. Um, Before I turn it over, I just want to share a few tidbits about Dennis here. So he does have a passion and drive for tackling some of the world's toughest challenges, whether it's in the private sector or working alongside the government. His career started out in the U.S. Air Force as a program director for national intelligence and space systems programs. And then from there, he went on to hold senior roles in Fortune 100 companies, taking startups through IPO, also serving as a member of the U.S. Senior Executive Service. Because of this unique domain knowledge and relationship capital he's built along the way, he has been tapped as a leader to develop national security programs, which required even frequent briefings for two past presidents. Um, he did spend some time with Lockheed Martin. During that time, he did build and lead the line of business that created, developed, and delivered post 9/11 risk-based real-time intelligence programs for the U.S., as well as an intelligence alliance made up of countries around the world. These programs still exist today, and they provide continuous security across global transportation, logistics, and critical infrastructure while ensuring the free flow of commerce. Following that, Dennis founded Transvoyant on the back of his work architecting national security initiatives, where he adapted this knowledge with the goal of revolutionizing supply chains to make them smarter, more efficient, and more responsive. So Transvoyant solution draws upon 12 years of proprietary data to assess flow and behavior patterns. And combined with continuous data streams from customers and its trading partners, companies that Transvoyant serves benefit from predictive and prescriptive actions that are supported by AI-driven decisioning and analytics. As a technologist and inventor, Dennis does hold 8 U.S. and international patents. So I'm going to turn it over to Dennis now, and he's going to share his thoughts on why supply chain visibility is dead. If any questions come to mind as he's talking, please do send them across. You'll see that there's a quick question button that I believe is on the top right of your screen. So without further ado, Dennis.
Thank you, Dean. Hopefully, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great. Well, um, Dean kind of embarrasses me. What he's really saying is I'm old and getting gray and losing my hair, and I'm kind of a geek. But I appreciate the kind introduction. So thanks, Dean. I'm also humbled and very grateful for everybody that's joined. The turnout is about 10 times what I expected. Dean tells me, and that slide says I have 15 minutes. I think some of you, we know each other on the line. And as you know about me, I can't even order sushi in 15 minutes. So I'm going to do my best. As you guys also know, I'm Gen X. So had a pretty lucky career for a kid that grew up in the sticks of Florida, wearing flip-flops and shorts to school. So I've worked in a warehouse, run global supply chains, worked on national security problems around the world, and now I'm a dreaded vendor. I used to hate dreaded vendors, so you'll see a bit of cynicism with me. I'm Gen X, and as you know, we're a bit of cynics. So my experience has led me to say some controversial things now and then. So today probably will be no different. I'm hoping I can wrap it up pretty quick, kind of talk faster here in a minute, and get to Q&A so you guys can all ping me with questions and make it more interactive. Not a big fan of the non-interactive kind of approach, so I'm doing my best. A couple words before we get started on visibility and kind of the whole genesis of at least my and our mantra around, visibility is dead. In basic sense, I mean, the word doesn't mean anything, and it never really has to me. I mean, I know there's a lot of people that market about what it is, but what am I going to do? Fly a helicopter, to a truck or a ship and go pick up my stuff? Um, so as a general rule, and this goes back to the whole Gen X thing and growing up listening to Nirvana and Soundgarden and Smashing Pumpkins. As a general rule, if CNBC says something more than 20 times a day, it's kind of hype over substance. So when we started Transvoyant, gosh, 12 years ago, we never set out to be a visibility company. We got called that, even though we asked different analysts and marketing groups to stop calling us that. But so be it. We just kept on going. I found it perplexing because 20 years earlier, I was arguing with my boss who ran manufacturing for IBM, when IBM still built stuff, by the way, that we should stop spending money on this project to see my stuff coming at my manufacturing lines because the factory guys didn't believe it was going to come. And instead work on, hey, why don't we spend all that money on getting the right stuff at the right place at the right time to the front of the line? And lo and behold, once we got that done, everybody stopped asking to see stuff, right? Well, there's a lot in that statement, right? A lot of variability and cycle time and lead time and ops research modeling and real-time ability to get the data, but simply seeing it and knowing where it is kind of a means to an ends if you think about it. The ends is much more complex, right? Right place, right time, right stuff, right level of buffer inventory, right crew on the line, right communications to the customer, setting their expectations so they don't game the demand signal. And to me, when we started Transvoyant, knowing where stuff was important, but really understanding the flow and behavior of what was moving, what was and will be moving between nodes and inside of a node of a supply chain, using the big S term, is the groundwork to be able to actually get ahead of problems, predict them, and interdict them before they happen. So that's kind of a little background, a little history, enough about kind of me and some of the genesis. Hopefully I can spend the next, I got about 10 minutes, 12 minutes, and cover what's more important, which is what I've learned and what we've learned as a team directly from our customers. So I think we might even have a couple charts to guide me. The first one is a little bit of a paying homage to a guy named James Carville. Some of you might know he was back in the day, even early in my life, was the political guy for Bill Clinton, for President Clinton. And he said, it's the business, or it's the economy, stupid. Most of our customers are successful customers, and this hasn't happened overnight. Everybody started with, let's do the latest and greatest thing. But our most successful, and most all of them actually, they start with the business case and focus on the business. Even before they're thinking about vendors and technologies and capabilities and features, if they're really successful, they're trying to solve usually customer facing or customer impact problems, always with a measurable ROI and always continue to measure that ROI as they deploy parts of any project they do. And that sounds really simple, but given my grayness and my experiences, it's maybe happens 50% of the time. There is so many times where even our early customers would just do a project because they thought they needed to do some kind of where's my stuff and maybe when's it going to get here, but never really tied it together with how can I use that to understand flow and behavior and better optimize my inventory or create better order promising and customer expectation setting. It was always kind of a ends to itself. And so, for example, we have a pretty large global life sciences customer. And if you're an outside observer and you're putting what we do in a box or what they do in a box with teaming with us, you would call it last mile orchestration and delivery, right? With a really large 300,000 shipments a night, hundreds of couriers. But down underneath, the real use cases were focused on measurable reduction and customer induced demand variability, where they were gaming the order books to make sure they got drugs at the right time. And then, as you guys know, the more you game the order books and the less you believe in when you're really going to get the order that you put up first, the more that impact is driven through a supply chain backwards. It was focused on paying their logistics service provider for performance. So taking money out, saving costs if they don't deliver on time in full, all the stops they needed to do to deliver. It also had some inventory benefits measured, and then continuously, communicating. Think of kind of the Amazon approach or the Domino's Pizza Hut approach, communicating to their customers and providing customer service about hourly and daily deliveries, and measuring that, right? So that it turned into a project that kept growing and kept being innovated upon because enough savings and enough net new revenue was created in the first phases that we could continue to innovate. We have several kind of life sciences and nutritional health customers that have what outside observers would call cold chain logistics use cases. But down in the real rubber meets the road, it's those solutions are predicting environmental excursions before they happen on treatment shipments. And then they're predicting other problems before they happen and actually interdicting with the ecosystem or intervening, depending on your choice of words, to fix the problems and prevent a bad shipment, a discard, well in advance, so that number one, the patients get the life-saving treatments, and number two, may I say, hundreds of millions of dollars being saved in discards. And then once again, right, they got those done. There was a measurable ROI, and they were able to drive more innovation because and I'll talk about this a little bit more later, down below, through the process, they're still getting that global flow and behavior data between nodes and end nodes for future innovation. So I guess a corollary is, don't do a data thing or a don't do, right? Is don't do a data thing or a data science thing or a visibility thing unless you are willing to state, commit to, and measure return on investment. Because eventually, and we learned this the hard way, we had a whole bunch of people all excited in 2018 giving us money. But at the end of the day, the CFO went, what am I getting? And when I was on the other side, the CEOs listened to the CFOs, and eventually the project goes south, right? So let's go to number 2, so I can be conscious of time. And I've kind of alluded to this. Our most valued customers, they look at their projects with a big S for supply chain. They don't think about visibility as a standalone team, a standalone thing. And they don't think about it as where it always usually starts in the past, at transportation only. They think about it, they kind of ignore all the buzzwords and all the issues associated with the early solutions that are out there. And they think about it as, how do I really understand what's happening in the past currently happening and in the future, both using network between node and in node. So that includes in manufacturing. What's the quality going to come out of manufacturing so I can get left of or ahead of what packaging and I need and what region I got to send it to, because different regions can take different qualities, et cetera, et cetera. They think about it, not just transportation lead time and variability, but warehouse cycle time and variability and manufacturing variability and quality. And when they do that, they're really on board with flow and behavior across their supply chains, across their trading partner and LSP ecosystems. And, to us, and probably because I was a customer so long in the early days of supply chain, I won't mention any company names, but it's all the kind of legacy players out there. I got pretty burnt out on not the market not believing that the customer really knew their supply chain better than other people. So we got to kind of take the approach where our customers know what they need to do to drive the supply chain. They know the what and they know the so what, right? So the big ass supply chain, they know what's the issues and what's areas for improvements and what are the opportunities. And they even intrinsically know the ROI. They know the so what. And instead of coming in and saying, this is what you got to do, be flexible enough to listen to that and have a platform that adapts to that and creates out solutions. So you're basically helping the customer with how, right? The technical how and the innovation, but you're creating an ability for them to innovate once they do those first couple of use cases. So I've kind of alluded to this, but we have a customer as an example here on the big S. They use past, present, and future behavior between node and in node, so variability and cycle times and quality, and they automatically feed the planning and execution systems, their legacy investments, with much better and more frequently updated lead times and variabilities and cycle times and variabilities, which are those parameters that set ordering and buffer stock if you're an OR geek like me. As opposed to the way we used to do it, which we'd hire Deloitte, and no offense if Deloitte's on the phone, love you guys. And we'd do a big network study, and maybe if we're lucky, once every 6 months, and if not, every year, we update all the planning and execution parameters. And sure enough, 2 weeks later, they're all OBE because the real world's changing, right? So it's my corollary lesson from our successful or don't, right? Or do not do is from our successful customers is don't think about these type of innovation, data science, whatever digital transformation, buzzword projects like we used to think about legacy. I'm going to put in a WMS and it's going to serve this functional silo, and I'm going to do a TMS and demand planning system, and name all the names, right? And they're done at a time certain, right? We've solved our demand planning problem, and we're done with this, and it's time to do some other vertical problem like warehouse management. Those are all necessary, but the new world, you're laying across all that and laying across your external world and your ecosystem partners and using all that information to make predictive decisions, right? And take action before bad stuff happens, or sometimes good stuff happens. A note about that, it does force, it's an organizational nightmare, right? I don't want to be too dramatic, but it forces people to work across their organizational silos. And the one I was talking about with customer demand and last mile delivery, I mean, it's the sales guys and the customer service people and the transportation logistics guys all having to work together. Glass half full, the program forced them to. Glass half empty, it was hard, right? The people part of this is not simple. I wish I could tell it to you because it would make, us seem like it's simple and it's easy to do, but it's not. It usually requires thoughts around a centers of excellence or an innovation organization that actually has teeth and has ROI embedded into their performance objectives, not some science project. And it requires a lot of work to get users on board early and often, which I think, if I do this right, gets us to the last lesson learned. It's a little bit more of a homage to, some of my geeky background. But our most successful customers take an agnostic supply chain innovation platform approach. And that's not a sales statement for Transpoint, because sometimes they do part of the platform and we do part of the platform, or we do the data and they do the application innovation, or they use all of our low code, no code tooling and they do their own thing, or we do it for them. I mean, there's a lot of different ways if you have a flexible platform to engage, and for good reason. Sometimes customers really are adamant about their supply chain as a competitive weapon, and they want to create the algorithms and applications. And you have to have this agnostic platform, agnostic to IoT devices, right? Or ecosystem partners' ability to integrate, because everybody isn't going to integrate via a API, take it from a crusty old national security guy. Agnostic to sensors, agnostic to enterprise systems. It's always flowing. It comes pre-plumbed with, external and ecosystem data around supply chains and ports and airports and strikes and go on and on and on, right? So the innovation platform helps you get that one business case or two business cases and those cross organization functions going, capabilities, and then you use the ROI or the return from that to start doing more innovation, right? I could talk for hours on the geek stuff, but I think it's best that I leave it at, you got to have an agnostic, both agnostic to legacy systems, agnostic to new IoT in the world, agnostic to ecosystem partners, something that anybody can connect to, and somebody helps you manage the quality and of that data, and something that gives you the low code, no code tooling in order to innovate on top of it. And then, obviously has a big library of applications already in place, right? But you could engage at any level of that. You got to demand your vendors give you that flexibility, if you ask me, because I used to be on your side. So I think that's about it, just to kind of stay on this timeline. But if just in summary, it's the business. James Carville, stupid. Make sure that you have ROI-driven use cases. Think about big S supply chain, not simple transportation visibility, but flow and behavior across and between and inside, and all the data required to do other use cases like price and cost and SKU level, and because once you get this flowing, you're limited by your ability to decide what to do next and its ROI, not by some technical or data limitation. And I guess I would say if you focus on the third one, which is the agnostic platform. So I think that's what I got, Dean. I don't like not looking at folks, so I hope you all are happy that you got something out of it. So Dean, go ahead with the questions.
Yeah, no, appreciate that very much, Dennis. There has been several questions that rolled in since you've been talking, and
Uh-oh.
they're pretty open-ended, so I don't know how we can cover this. But here, let me throw one at you. So
Okay.
somebody has asked, in the wake of the Red Sea shipping crisis, the Baltimore Key Bridge collapse, and the Taiwan earthquake, given these recent events, how can organizations leverage the lessons that you're talking about to proactively mitigate risks, optimize operations, enhance supply chain resilience?
I mean, this is me, and I'm a big geek, and I come out of a world where we do predict problems, and actually the machine recommends what to do with those problems. They happen to be national security problems, and they're not. It's kind of disappointing to talk about that supply chain, otherwise known as a kill chain. But you can actually, well, first off, it is feasible in doing it today, the minute something happens, to know what the future impact to your movements or your shipments, to your inventory levels at other nodes that are near the impact, to your people if there's some risk event that happens and you have that's all technically feasible and being done today with flowing behavior data and models to project that. Because like silly small example, when you're predicting when something's going to arrive, you really need to predict where it's going to be every 10 minutes, like forward breadcrumbs. And if you've taken the big S approach, you've got SKU level and price level and all that stuff, price in there. And quickly the machine can say, okay, look, simulate forward and look at those forward breadcrumbs and tell me where all my stuff's going to be that's heading towards the Red Sea the day it happens. In the Red Sea example, you can also, for lack of a better term, draw a little box where somewhere on the globe that you're worried about, because this is that national security background that we have. And you can say, well, I don't know what's going to happen in the Panama Canal, but it's going to be closed for a month, 2 weeks, a month from now. What's the impact on all my, in process and planned shipments? What will the resulting inventory levels be at my nodes if it doesn't get through, right? Or the time's extended. That kind of capability exists now. So our companies, it goes back to that change management and organizational change. Do companies actually know what to do with that? No. I mean, straight up, there's not a team that's like, okay, we're going to do a what if on this part of the world, because we did it on the Houthi thing. I mean, we knew because of our backgrounds weeks before that was going to happen. So that's, instead of like lessons learned, you should be learning before it happens by doing, rapid real-time simulation based on your supply chain, not some BS, no knowledge of your context and supply chain stuff. Remember I said I'd say controversial things. And you should be able to do it projection. You should also be able to do it when it happens, right? So the machine should do it for you when it happens. Okay. Hopefully it helps, Dean. This 30-minute thing, I don't like it.
There's a couple minutes left, but maybe we have time for just one more here. So we have another question on how can companies effectively bridge the gap between traditional supply chain methodologies and the innovative platform-driven approach that you're advocating?
Certainly the customers taught us lesson one, which was go after ROI and preferably something that's facing or touching a customer, which all of a sudden forces you to work across organizational silos. It's real hard. I'm not saying it's organizationally easy. A bunch of egos are involved. But that's very untraditional. I mean, the way supply chain software used to be, you'd go do a WMS and the log warehouse guys would work on it. Transportation guys work on TMS, and all those are not going away. They're audited system of records. If you're a public company, you got issues with Sarbanes-Oxley and other rules to pull in and out of these systems. But to have a platform that lays on top of that and your ecosystem, your partners, your suppliers, and it's real time and always operating is the technical way to do it. But that's not the hard part. I mean, not to sound brash, the hard part is you got to bring organizations together and you got to be disciplined about innovating across silos using these capabilities. That's a short answer, Dean.
Appreciate that, Dennis. I think that about wraps it up. These other questions that are out there, I apologize that we didn't get to them, but we'll certainly reach out and answer them for you. So that being said, we want to thank everybody for taking the time to join us. Thank you, Dennis.
Thanks, everybody. I'm humbled. I appreciate it. I couldn't believe how many people joined. So I hope you got some value. Yeah.
And then just anybody that wants to reach out to us, just a quick note, you can always scan that QR code, find us on our website. You can contact us through the form there or reach out to us at sales@transpoint.com. Thank you again, everyone.
Thank you
Enjoy the
all.
rest of your
Have a
day.
good day.